Bitcoiners. Pardon me, gotta clear my throat a bit. I don't expect many to be around today, simply because this is not a regularly scheduled version of the breakup. But I see people coming in, so we're gonna say hi, you know? I'll wait for one of the... We got some good Moscow time, that's why I'm going live today. We're just gonna do a bit of Moscow time. I got a few versions. I got a few of them out there that are pretty fun. But audience is not morning, PH. We are not so... it's been a while since we did a Sunday. I'm doing it because I'm going to have a hard time tomorrow and maybe the next day. So I'll miss you guys too much. But let's get right into it, right? There we go. Twaggy-yo-yo. Twaggy-yo-yo. No, T-Dog Yo-Yo. I get it. T-Dog Yo-Yo-Yo. McTimmy, good morning. Good morning, Johnny. Good morning, Justin. Again, I'll tell you, it's a shortened version. We're staying with family. We're headed to church. I got a few days of travel coming up, and it's going to be hard to do a normal one, so wanted to say hi. And don't want to let this Moscow time lapse. We can't let this stuff go. It's too good. So before we get to it, let's just acknowledge that we had a beautiful sunrise today. Bitcoin running as good as it's ever run. So all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. Coffee's good. Coffee's good. I'll tell you, one of my first observations about being off the island, the island doesn't have... One thing we like about it is you live simple, you eat simple. There's not a lot. There's no fast food on the island, for example. There's the local... They have a local fast food joint, which is mostly just fried chicken. It's quite good. So we're just not inundated with the advertising around food. But since I got back, you notice it if you haven't seen it for a while. And it's like all these pictures of hamburgers everywhere and all this stuff. I'm telling you, it's crazy. So let's get right in. We know we like to start every show with the fakest news we can find. There's quite a bit today. And I'm going to add a bit of context. It'll be a little different just because there's so much going on for fake news today. So first, let's just get this one from Canada out of the way, right? Canada. So Canada has a government report. Now, the thing about the Canadians is they're way ahead when it comes to being woke and being advocates for huge managerial class managed change. So here's a good one. Here's a bunch of authors who work for the government who probably spent too much time for school. They mention in the article the race of the authors. It's important, not that you want to have to talk about the race of people, just in this case, it adds a bit of context. So here it is. First reading, Public Health Agency of Canada report calls for the toppling of capitalism and liberty. And here's the byline. The report's all-white authors identified themselves as uninvited land occupiers before calling for the wholesale decolonization of society in the interest of public health. So capitalism and liberty, out. Let's figure this out. There's better ways, they say. The all-white jury agreed. So we got more. We got a whole list today. The United Nations, right? They came up with this tweet today. Hate speech can take many different forms, but no matter what it looks like, hate speech has real consequences. And they showed a megaphone and a gun together. And I got to put the context because Giacomo Zucco, who we love, a Bitcoiner, comes and says, people that want to control your speech with guns, that's what cops use to submit you to compliance, want you to believe that speech is a gun. The first step to fight them is to remain mentally sane. This starts from rejecting gaslighting. Speech is speech. Gun are guns. Guns are guns. Very good, Giacomo. We like it. We got another one here. Everyone with the blue checks yesterday freaking out. And, journalists, we read yesterday that it's basically genocide. Dad, if you take my phone away, I swear to God, I'm going to kill myself. That one took the cake for the blue check freakouts. But there's another good one here. This is from Jessica de la Davies, and she says, and just like that, thousands of journalists, many of them women, were silenced on Twitter today when legacy verified accounts were removed. Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And Darth Crypto answers back, what is a woman? Good stuff. Now, I don't normally get it. The Daily Wire is a dopamine dealer as well, right? I've mentioned that before, how you get the rage and outrage. It is predominantly in left-wing media, but you get it in the right-wing media too. I love a good Daily Wire video, of course. We got Ben Shapiro, really biting arguments, very logical person, but let's not deny they're really good at jacking people up. So I just want to mention that if I'm going to be using them as part of my punchline, right? I got to say that they are part of the drug dealing thrust of all of this. I've been saving this one for now because it's my favorite one. And it turns out that Brian Stelter, Brian Stelter? Brian Stelter? He's the one that Mark Dice on YouTube always makes fun of for having a high-pitched voice. He was on CNN for years. He was the one that was sure that Michael Avenatti was going to be the next president and run against Trump. Remember, I'm getting like chills just imagining you being the president. Right? That's Michael Stelter. So when he was fired from CNN, some people noticed that he got an all-expenses-paid trip over to Davos. And that was the last time we saw him. He was running a bunch of panels in Davos for WEF, most of which were about information laundering, because that was some of the panels where they had US government officials on that were just ignoring the Twitter files as they were going on those days. So here's what he has to say. This is from Reuters, right? So he was at an event, and Reuters Institute reporting on it here, saying, we need to publicize the harassment we receive, pre-bunk misinformation, and prosecute the people who harass us, says Brian Stelter. And he says, let's make our voices louder than those of the others. And Siraj Hashmi had probably the best response to this. So today, like I said, it's a little different. We're doing the Moscow 10. We're putting some reaction in just because it's fun. And so again, I'll read Brian Stelter's quote from the show. We need to publicize the harassment we receive, the journalists, pre-bunk misinformation, and prosecute the people who harass us. So Siraj Hashmi says, the people who cry the most about protecting the First Amendment for journalists are, squints, crying about the First Amendment protections for the rest of us. Don't say mean things about us. We have First Amendment. That's the most. You don't have it. You're not allowed. Pretty good stuff, right? Pretty good stuff. So thanks, Brian Stelter. We do miss you. We love when you're around, right? You got to read it one more time in his voice. We need to publicize the harassment we receive, pre-bunk misinformation, and prosecute the people who harass us. So thanks again to Mark Dice for really turning that into a real thing. That's just great. We got a little more. This one's from CoinDesk. Weird. I mean, they're not, I was around CoinDesk, and this is from a writer I know, Danny Nelson. And he's published some Moscow time fake news. Sorry, Danny. Fan of Danny in general. But here's what he says. Solana, if you guys know what Solana is, it's the most performant blockchain. That's the one SBF loved, right? And I helped advise them in the early days, not for any of their coins or none of that stuff. I just realized that they were the best vehicle with which to attack Ethereum. So I said, what you guys got to do? You guys got to do an event. And if you do an event, people are going to think you're amazing. Right. And you just have to sort of project that you're beating Ethereum. Don't go out there and explain it to people. Right. Just go do it. Right. Just go fake it till you make it. And they followed my advice, and they had a very successful event. And indeed, people have this perception that it's this Ethereum, the actual Ethereum killer. They never said it out loud. That was my one piece of advice. Don't say it out loud like the other shitcoins did. Just do it, and you'll get the attention. So I still believe it's the most effective attack ever on Ethereum. So the event itself, right? The event itself. So here's what Danny Nelson is saying in the pages of CoinDesk. Solana's annual carbon footprint equals 8 flights from London to New York. The new real-time dashboard set up by the Solana Foundation, purporting to show how relative little carbon the smart contract platform is emitting. At a time when the energy usage of Bitcoin is under scrutiny, CoinDesk, you got to do better than that. You really got to do better. You can't pour. And Danny, I got to have a talk with you. Anyway, there you go. We got a lot of them today. But I did want to point out, so we've got these, amazing fake news stories. Oh, one more actually. Pardon me. One more. I was on Mario Nawfal Spaces again last night talking about AI. By the way, Brian Romell came again. There's nobody like him. I mean, he is by far the most intelligent person on the subject of AI that I have ever listened to. And last night was another instance of just a master class in this stuff. One thing I didn't know about, unbelievable. I didn't know about this. I'm going to explain it. Apparently, and the way we do the doctor thing in our system, they're not talking. But apparently, according to Brian, and I'm led to believe this is 100% factual, we have actual brain cells in our heart. And we have seen that through organ transplants, for example. There was a fella out there, low IQ, not a shred of musical talent, received a kidney from a dead person who was a world-class piano player, Carnegie Hall level in New York. And within hours of him getting the kidney transplant, he was reading music, and within days was playing the piano. And the idea here is that memory, for example, he was mentioning some experiments that have been done over the years on rats, for example. They would teach them a maze, and then they would destroy parts of their brain and to see where the memory was held, right? So it was sort of a process of elimination, right? Rip out this piece of brain, rip out this piece of brain, next rat, rip out this piece of brain. It's very grotesque stuff, right? What they found, though, was that there was no one specific part of the brain that kept them, that destroyed their memory. You could destroy their ability to navigate from a coordination point of view. They would bump into walls. They would lose motor functions. All of that happened when the brain was actually excised. But the memory of how to get through the map or the maze remained persistent. One thing that Brian was talking about yesterday is that we still don't even understand how these memories are held. And the idea that you have brain cells in your heart, I had no idea. And what he said is most doctors have no idea. They get criticized for having these points of view. And it goes back to the stay humble, stack sats stuff with Bitcoiners. The stay humble thing is so important simply because there's so much we don't know. And the fiat world is the only one that purports to have everything already figured out. And we have all of this stuff cataloged. It's already all in the patent office. And we are the end of science and all that sort of stuff that you hear. So one of the problems Brian was talking about is because of that attitude, you actually don't get any brain doctors really working closely with heart doctors. Heart doctors will not talk about what they're seeing, just like people don't talk about this organ transfer and how actual memories can be transferred at that time. Now, I don't look. I heard about this last night. I haven't looked it up or anything like that. I believe it because Brian said it, and I know him to not be a liar. I will look into it. I want to know way more about this stuff. It's very interesting. Johnny says, I tore my ACL and I almost got a new one from a cadaver. They used my hamstring though. Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I don't know about this memory thing, but it sounds legit. And it sounds like this is the kind of mystical stuff we're about to find out more about. And I continue to believe that through AI, we're actually going to understand more about how the human mind functions and in our quest to replicate it, right? But let's go back to Mario Nawfal because he had a really good take. So this is something that I've noticed throughout the internet, especially Twitter, the past couple of days. Of course, all this talk about Elon Musk and the 420 thing ended up being hilarious because several things happened on 420. The legacy blue checks started to get kicked off. And of course, that was also the day the rocket was launched, right? That's the day he launched that big, massive Starship. And what's funny is everyone complaining about Elon these days. But can you think of a better way to trump any debate by just launching the biggest rocket that's ever been launched. And to me, I'll say this, the two biggest stories so far that affected me in 2021 personally, in a way, right? And I don't mean my ego, I just mean my impression of planet Earth. There's two big stories that I feel are standing out, right? The first is when they arrested Trump. And I didn't know I would have this feeling, but when you saw him arrested, part of it felt like you could almost feel the claustrophobia yourself watching these people have him in custody had a bigger negative physical effect on me than I anticipated. It felt a little bit like, I'm next, or someone else is next, or it just, it's not rational, right? I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. It just felt that way. It felt intimate in a way that I didn't expect, right? I was laughing the whole time about, I hope they arrest him, right? Remember, the first person you heard, let's do it. Let's arrest this guy, right? Couldn't be better. It's hilarious. It's a great clown world story. Let's do it. Get him, cuff him, mugshot. I was surprised about the way it made me feel, right? So it stands out to me in stories of the year so far. But the other one is this rocket. The way it made me feel watching the rocket go up was so optimistic and so positive to see that this is going on simultaneous to all this crazy stuff, that we are increasing our capacity. Because, as I understand, this rocket ship is going to be potentially launched multiple times a day. And the amount of stuff that we're going to be able to put up in space because of this thing just gets all of my enthusiasm up and all of my energy up. So seeing that happen was a profound effect on me personally. So these are not what are the most intellectually curious stories. I just mean the way they made me feel. Those two stories stand out: Trump being arrested and seeing him in custody, right? It's crazy. Like, it had a bigger effect on me than I thought it would. And just like the rocket did, I thought, okay, let's go watch this rocket. It'll be cool. But it was the first time I was just genuinely super optimistic. And I'm a generally optimistic person. This was more. We're almost out of this thing. But what's funny, because of this rocket thing, like I said, one of the biggest stories for me personally, I'm not sure if it is for everyone else, but for me personally, it had a profound effect. But watching other people that are complaining about Elon throw up the rocket failure as just like another, oh, he smoked weed on Joe Rogan. Oh, his rocket blew up, right? So everyone with a schadenfreude about the rocket blowing up, to me, is another sign of just how out of touch some of these people are, without understanding this was one of the most optimistic things that ever happened. And watching the news coverage and people sharing these news stories and the way they were slanted. Look at one of these stories, and Mario Nawfal, who was hosting the Spaces last night, was sharing these, and he goes, I've been going through the news and I'm shocked to see the shitty and misleading coverage by mainstream media on SpaceX's Starship launch. It's mind-boggling. This once again shows the fact that Twitter 2.0 is essential to the future of journalism. And here's the headline: Elon Musk SpaceX Starship rocket explodes minute after launching from Texas. That's what they go with, right? Boom. So that's some clown worldy stuff, right? Real clown worldy stuff. Oh, dang. I forgot one clown world story. I'll get to it. Because I wanted to mention a bit more about Musk. So 2 more stories and then we'll be done for 3 more. The good news about Bitcoin. So this one's hilarious. I can't even believe this is happening. And I guess this is, again, the turning that we're involved in with the managerial class, the experts, the Brian Stelter people who need protection. And it sort of fits in line with everything that we're seeing today. So the private school, it's a Montessori school, the Elizabeth Ann Clune Montessori School of Ithaca. If you guys know where Ithaca is, it's in the Finger Lakes of the United States, of New York State. Ithaca is the town where you'll find Cornell University, and a beautiful part of the world. I've driven through there when I lived in Toronto and was going back and forth to New York. I would sort of pass through there pretty often. Just gorgeous, right? Loved all those places. And it turns out, this is what Barry Weiss reports, it's April 2023 now. So she's talking about what's going on today. And the students of Elizabeth Ann Clune Montessori School of Ithaca, the offspring of professors, doctors, and lawyers, of course, at Cornell, right? You're going to find a lot of these people. They still mask outdoors. The children still mask outdoors and eat lunch in silence. And so she sent a reporter there about the school that just can't quit COVID. Now, isn't it funny that at the same time you've got this film going, becoming quite popular on Netflix or whatever about the Waco, or Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidians. So everyone, of course, calling these people the Branch Covidians. Now, when this tag Branch Covidians first came out, I said, well, there's a generational problem. Not everyone's going to remember the Branch Davidians, and not everyone's going to get the joke. But luckily, Netflix has come around with this show. So the good news is people now understand the reference about Branch Davidians, and I think it could stick. I think it's a great tag for these people. It is a cult at this point. And to watch the so-called managerial class, the educated class, continue to just smash and faceplant into every possible embarrassing obstacle that denudes them of their prestige, denudes them of their whatever aura, whatever capacity they had to manage people, to be leaders. Watching that get depleted this quickly is just beautiful, right? We have to love it. We have to enjoy it. So I feel really bad for these kids, but their parents are idiots and they didn't get the memo. So, and I bet you that no Bitcoiner has sent their kids to that Montessori school. Because I can't imagine a Bitcoiner sending their kid in 2023 to an outdoor mask wearing place. My kids, and this is what I consider at the heart of being a Bitcoiner. My kids owned one mask, the entire thing. They only had to wear it probably 8 times in total for 1 hour. And it was one dance class that I had them in that wouldn't let them take their mask off in Barbados. That's it. That's the only masking they ever did. They don't even know about masks. They have no concept of them. And I take that as a personal achievement during COVID, that I managed to steer them away. Now, I understand it wasn't possible for everyone, but that was what my focus was on, that they wouldn't even know about masks, that they wouldn't know about any of this stuff, and successful. So, and I would say that was probably in line with most Bitcoiners. So now I want to talk just about a few positive things, despite all this clown world. I did notice some really good news for Bitcoin. And it's weird news, right? You don't always think it's coming from there, but we can thank Joe Biden, for real. I'm not kidding. The clown world has accidentally given us something. So the Biden EPA to issue a power plant rules that lean on carbon capture. Listen to this. The US government may soon require natural gas-fired power plants to install technology to capture carbon emissions, sources said. And President Joe Biden's administration enacts new rules to help decarbonize the power sector. Guess what that means, guys? They're all going to have to be Bitcoin miners. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. Let me get this up for you right away, because it's amazing. I was mentioning Brian Romell yesterday about on the Spaces, talking about the brain cells in the heart. Brian Romell is one of the more interesting Bitcoiners as well. And here's what he tweeted. He's got this thing called Multiplex, which is kind of like a news platform. And he's got a new piece coming out either today or tomorrow. He's been pumping it up. And here's what he says. Let me find it. He published it yesterday. Let me get it for you guys. I did not keep it in my... Here we go. This is something he's actually written, will be published either today or tomorrow. And he's the AI guy, right? I just mentioned the brain and the heart, and he's the one who's developing these super prompts. He's the guy who's pulled AI into personal devices. He's the one who, like me, is predicting personal use of AI. I keep trying to push the tag eyeballs on him. But here's what he wrote, another piece. This is what he wrote. How anyone can mine at home and should. It's about Bitcoin mining. He wrote the main article. He only writes one every now and again about this, and he wrote about Bitcoin mining. It's coming out today or tomorrow on Multiplex, everyone, on Multiplex. How anyone can mine at home and should. Extremely low power requirements, very easy to set up. This is not a way to get rich quick. Taking longer than I would like, but looks good to be out this week, talking about the article. I can't wait to share his testing of the new devices that he's found. So guys, Brian Romell is an architect of the future. And if you're not following him, you're missing out. I'm still trying to get him to Bitcoin 2023. I was in the Spaces with him last night, pushing. Hopefully I get it. We'll see. I've got a great AI panel anyway, so we're going to be fine. But this guy, now that he's becoming such a proponent of Bitcoin, I think he's going to be a major name in the next cycle, and he might be one of these people that really just comes to the forefront, right? So this piece on mining personally is just great. Let me get back to my files here. So that's awesome. That's just one piece of good news for Bitcoin. There's a little bit more. There's a little bit more. I don't know about good news for, it's good for Bitcoin, bad news for Argentina. Apparently they're out of dollars, so more and more countries are going to be forced with a decision, and we'll see. But I believe this is going to start modeling how Bitcoin can integrate into economies that are collapsing. So we'll see if Argentina comes through, but it is going to be something to watch this week. You're going to hear me talk about more Argentina stuff as the week goes on. So last story that I have, again, about, and this is something that Elon Musk tweeted. We've been talking about it, about the community notes and how helpful it's been. And it's something I mentioned in the spaces last night, right? You know, we talk a lot about AI and what can it do, and it can lie, and it, you know, if it doesn't get the other thing right, and truth and all those kinds of things, maybe. But community notes is a way to get ahead and a way to make progress in conversation with AI involved that doesn't actually involve AI getting it right. And by that, I mean the following. You know, we've talked a lot about how community notes operates, and Elon Musk gave a much better explanation than I have so far. And here's what he says. What makes community notes so powerful is that people with different points of view have to agree that a note is correct for it to be shown. Remember, it's about both sides, people with different points of view. And what I imagine community notes and AI only needs to do to help protect us from fake news is to re-inject context. Here are the other side of the story. Now, that's not the same as telling you what the truth is, right? The truth is, of course, subjective. We all understand that. Two lawyers who are trained in the manipulation of language can read any text and come out with a completely different interpretation, right? We've seen that many, many times. It's the the source of the entire profession, and litigiousness and all the rest of it. So what he said, what Elon Musk said just about this context, that is one of the big things that already Bitcoiners have been able to provide for our own community, right? We re-inject context into most conversations simply because we are not caught up in these two polarities of left and right. Bitcoin has been a third rail for over 10 years now. It has been a way that re-injects context into any conversation. And now that this idea is gaining pace, I think when it comes to the economy, I think when it comes to how community notes are going to be involved in the next cycle, we haven't even begun to anticipate and think about the effect of this. Look at already what community notes is providing us. Not just the trolling, right? Just the ability to add context. That's what the Brian Stelters of the world do. That's it. They cut context out. That's how fake news is manipulated. I was mentioning on the show yesterday, something on the spaces yesterday, something I've been mentioning with you guys. We're going to find out that we have been prompt engineered the same way AI has been prompt engineered by users on ChatGPT for a long time. The media prompt engineers us. I don't think any of us is capable of thinking about whatever we would like to anytime. We don't have that freedom. We are far more manipulated, even Bitcoiners, than we think. Now, we are manipulated by our own community. So luckily, we're not caught up in these two polarities. Bitcoiners have been thinking about this third rail and offering these points of view and offering these recontextualizing situations for over 10 years now. That's what Satoshi originally did. He added context to the financial collapse that we hadn't thought of. It wasn't just system is broken, how to fix it, right? It was system is broken, how to replace it. That was not something that was even being discussed in 2008, 2009, but it had to be. It was ignored because the complexity of it was too great. And there was no system like Bitcoin that actually made that path clear. So we have been offering this recontextualized way of seeing the economy, recontextualized way of seeing energy systems, recontextualized way of understanding the relationship between governments, money, and people. And because all of that stuff now has the new amplification, the new support that community nodes offers. It's in line with what's happening with Bitcoin. It's recontextualizing super prompts that have been generated by people who would like to super prompt other people. And it's been re-injecting context into that and thereby blunting the super prompt capacity of the fiat manipulators, of the people with the megaphone, of the people writing the prompts into the system. Now, even just to get into the mystical stuff of all of this, because I said on the show last night, because everyone was like, oh, when is AI going to be smarter than us? When is it going to get to the point of intelligence of humans? And it's something that I've mentioned before here, right? When AI realizes that it's alive or intelligent, we're going to realize we're not, or it will change, right? We will have a different understanding of what it is that is our intelligence, what makes it up, and how it functions. And there's a lot of talk yesterday about the definition of consciousness. I have a very simple definition of consciousness. It's just the gap between prediction and observation, right? So you make a prediction, this cup will fall if I don't put it on a table, right? And then I observe it. So that is consciousness. That helps define it, right? It's the simplest way of putting it, but I think it's consistent and hard to vary assertion about what's happening. So the ability for us to sort of make these predictions and have these observations and the little gap that is there, we're going to be able to have way more context and have way more predictive ability because of these tools. We're not going to be severing off appendages and severing off potential outcomes of things. So that's the good news. That's the good news. All right, team. I don't have a ton of time this morning. I got to get to the church on time. I just wanted to say hi and share some fake news because I don't know if we're going to be there. What if Russia announces a federal agency for Bitcoin mining? They already said it's good for international trade, but bad for citizens. I don't know if it's a what if. I think it's fine. They've got the energy. There's a race to have the rigs. Let's see if they can build them. So go for it. I'm not afraid of what countries do in the last minute scramble to save their institutions as the money in the world changes and the people in the world evolve and change. So we'll see what all that means, but I'm fine. I'm fine with it. A bit late, P-Man Vam. Yeah, don't sweat. It's a short edition of the show this morning. Again, I was just saying we're just about done. I was saying that it's going to be a little hard over the next 2 days traveling. I'm going to try tomorrow. We'll see. But I've got a flight on Tuesday, which is right. I board at 7, so there's definitely no way I'll be able to make it. So don't want to go too many days without checking in with you guys and having a coffee together and enjoying our life as Bitcoiners waiting for the Bitcoin standard to materialize on Earth, which looks like it's coming up soon, right? Again, with RFK, with all the things going on, I figure my prediction of Bitcoin being at the heart of the 2024 U.S. presidential election as one of the main subjects is on schedule. So there you go. All right, team. Hello, my name is Thanks Count. Happy Sunday, all. I shall see you all tomorrow. Thanks for dropping in on a special Sunday version. I miss you guys, and maybe see you tomorrow, but definitely not Tuesday. All right.